them Cowboys. It's the Cowboys Squad, sponsored by Game Time. Everything Dallas Cowboys every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from America's team, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Cowboys Squad Show, starting now.
I like that. Squad up, right? That's what we're doing here today. We are squatting up 100%. The Cowboys have a little over a month off, but not us. The Cowboys Squad Show continues, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if and when your first $5 bet wins. That is the co-host of the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast, Marcus Mosher, crushing it every day with Landon McCool. Marcus, good morning to you. And right next to him is my co-host for the in-season Cowboys postcast, former Cowboys coach, Glenn Stretch Smith. All right, guys. Well, one little nugget over the last couple of days. We now know it's official. The Cowboys will begin their training camp in Oxnard on July 21st, a little over a month from today. Can't wait for that. Marcus, you and Landon have been all over everything since minicamp ended. What were some of your takeaways, some of the highlights from the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast?
Yeah, it's just fun to hear about some of the new guys that are participating in practice. And I think the biggest story was George Pickens and how he's getting comfortable in the offense and how he likes playing with CeeDee Lamb and the connection with Dak Prescott. That's all fun in OTAs and mini camps when there's no contact and stuff. But I think what we've heard is that everything seems like it's going well. He's participating in the meetings. Brian Schottenheimer actually called him out for how well he's done in some of these meetings, and all the things that go on. So we'll see. We're still a month away from camp. That's when we'll find out whether these guys are really worth anything or not. But so far, it's been a positive offseason for the Dallas Cowboys.
Coach, I know you have deep connections. What have you heard?
Well, I mean, they all like, everybody I'm talking to in the building likes the energy in the building. They like what's going on. I mean, and again, when there's zero adversity going on, how would you not like it? How would things not be going well when you don't have, guys asking the tough questions and, I mean, all the things that are going to come, especially with a first-year head coach. You just have to hope that, they're able to stick together and fight through when the adversity side of it comes. But right now, everybody seems to be happy and they're on vacation. From a coaching staff and a scouting staff standpoint, everybody pushes away for this month, and then they get ready to go to work because it is a long grind.
It reminds me of like the last couple of weeks before school when you're a senior, right? Like everybody's in a good mood, everybody's happy, because what's there not to be happy about? The games haven't started yet. There's no real big issues. So it's OTAs, it's BDK. We can't get too upset.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, with that said, a little tease for us coming up later in the show. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to think about it, but I wanted to ask you, as we sit today, a month away from training camp, and mini camp is over, OTAs are over, everything that you just shared, what is your biggest Cowboys concern right now? Now, we'll go back and we'll do this again during training camp and plenty of times before the season, but I just wanted to kind of get a pulse of where you guys sit right now after everything that's happened, and we have this little pause. What's your biggest Cowboys concern? We'll get into that a little bit later on. All right, one thing we've talked about now for a few weeks was the Cowboys possibly picking up Packers corner Jair Alexander. Well, he's gone. He's gone from Green Bay, but he is not a Cowboy. He ended up taking a deal with the Baltimore Ravens. The Cowboys, though, did make some moves. They signed cornerback Robert Rochelle. And I was going to ask you, Marcus, is our audience, are they too young for Seinfeld?
I mean, I love Seinfeld, so we're good with that. Go ahead. I think our audience will get it.
Yeah,
Seinfeld's very rewatchable.
Right away, it's Rochelle. I mean,
Exactly.
you gotta at least have to say it. We don't have to dwell on it. And they signed a defensive tackle out of the UFL, Perion Winfrey. What are your thoughts on that?
So I actually remember Winfrey at Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner. But I remember watching him at the Senior Bowl, and he was absolutely dominant during the 2022 Senior Bowl. So much so that I thought he could potentially be, a day 2 pick. He falls to the 4th round. He goes to Cleveland, and there are some maturity issues there. And I think that's the biggest reason why it didn't work out. He's a very, very young player. I think he's only 24 years old. He goes to Cleveland, doesn't work out, gets cut, goes to the Jets, has a connection with the Cowboys defensive line coach, ends up on the injured reserve list, and then goes to the UFL and has a really nice season. The Cowboys have had a lot of success with these UFL players, whether it's Cavante Turpin or Brandon Aubrey. And I think they're looking at Winfrey as, hey, this is another extremely talented player who just played some of the best football of his career. It costs us nothing. We have a need on the defensive line. Why not bring him in for the next 2 months and see if he has his head on the, if he's focused and he's ready to go.
Bringing these guys in, I mean, I coached in that when it was the USFL for the first 2 years. And when you're able to bring guys in who have been playing football, guys who are in really good football shape, and, that's exactly what happened with Cavante Turpin after year 1, is he was able to come in and after, playing in Mike Riley's offense in the USFL where they were able to move him around and get him the football. And then, we know what he could do from a special team standpoint. I think there's value in that. Here's the flip side of that scenario is that they're in that league for a reason. Now, what is the reason? And, can they make the transition? Some of them can. It's just very, very difficult. But I do think that when you can get a guy that's in football shape, that's been playing football, and you can say, hey, you got a month off right here, get ready to transition to camp. Usually they make it an okay transition, and they're okay camp guys.
And it's not like Winfrey hasn't been able to play at the NFL level before. We've seen him. We've seen him start games in the league and actually play okay. His biggest thing that's always hampered him, even going back to Oklahoma, was there's some maturity issues and there's some off-field stuff. And you would hope as a guy gets older and he maybe realizes, you get cut twice by the Browns and the Jets and nobody else will sign you. Maybe he realizes, hey, I got to smarten up here a little bit or else I'm never going to get back into the league. I think that's what you're hoping for here. And for the Cowboys, it's just it's a flyer. It costs you nothing, right? If he doesn't work out and he's missing meetings or whatever, you cut him and you move on and nobody's going to care. But these are the kind of signings that you make in June, and maybe he ends up making your 53-man roster. Probably not. But again, it doesn't cost you anything to find out and see.
Well, that's the thing is you're basically getting a free look. Doesn't cost you anything but whatever the weekly training camp number is. I mean, it is,
which is very low,
which is nothing. That's right. So there's no downside to taking a look at a guy if you really feel like he fits in that scenario. So, you mentioned it earlier. It was year 2 when I was in the USFL when Bones came to. As a matter of fact, it was at our game when we had played Birmingham, and he was there. He was just scouting Aubrey. He was all over the field. He watched him warm up. He watched him do everything, and we know what's happened there. So there are some guys that can do it. It's just I like to taper my enthusiasm for those situations because I know how difficult it is.
One more thing on Winfrey before we move on. This is a unbelievable athlete. You go back and you look at his stuff at the NFL Combine. This is a 6'4" defensive tackle that ran in the 4.8s, and he's got unbelievably long arms. Maybe just a couple of years, bouncing around the league, going to the UFL has helped his development. I don't want to get people too excited. It's not like they signed Chris Jones or Aaron Donald or anything like that, right? They didn't. But maybe now that he's 24, he's grown into his body a little bit. Could he be somebody that's challenging for a backup role? One thing, Coach, we know is the Cowboys, they do not have a lot of depth at the defensive tackle spot. Like, that's clearly a spot, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, that has me concerned. Maybe Winfrey can be one of these guys that comes in, gets 12, 15 snaps a game. He's clearly got the talent. He's got the athleticism. We'll see if he's ready for it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. If you told me let's go up to Klondike, Alaska, and we think we can pan around in here and we can find us a little piece of gold, hell, I'll get a scarf on and put a stocking hat on. I'll get up there with you, and yeah, I'm right there with you. There's no downside to it.
Nice. I always say you never realize the value of something until you lose it. And to your point, Marcus, maybe just the growing pains and dealing with success, and it's because dealing with adversity is one thing, but it's a lot harder, it seems, sometimes to deal with success. And you kind of go from king of the mountain in college, and you have a lot of things going, and then your pride gets in the way, and then all of a sudden it's gone, and you get humbled, and then all of a sudden you have an opportunity to get a second chance. And so hopefully that's the case here, and he'll make the most of it. Sounds like he's, I like this kind of redemption mindset culture that Schottenheimer's kind of putting together. And, we'll see how that plays out during training camp. Not surprised really, right, Marcus, Coach, about Jair Alexander. It just didn't seem like, from a money standpoint, just didn't seem like it was going to be a good fit right now.
No, I think if I would have told you yesterday that the Cowboys signed to Packers corner, you would have thought it was Jair Alexander, but no, it was Robert Rochelle. I kind of thought Jair was always going to go to a situation like Baltimore where he wasn't going to be relied upon to be the number 1 or number 2 corner because he's missed so much time. And now with the Ravens, he can be the 3rd corner. He can be a guy that, hey, when he's healthy, he's on the field, but we just anticipate him missing half the season, but we've got the depth to make up for it. I think with the Cowboys having so many injuries at cornerback right now to Trayvon Diggs, Savon Ravel, Josh Butler, even someone like Kalen Carson, I just don't know if they have the appetite to sign another banged up corner.
Yeah. What he signed a 1-year, $6 million deal.
Max of $6 million. I think the base was $4 million. So it's pretty low.
So you see what I'm saying? He's got a chance to go almost play himself into another deal here.
Yep.
Not having to be forced to be a starter, to be a day one guy. He's with his old teammate Lamar Jackson. They played at Louisville together. So, I did see where Lamar stepped out and said, "Hey, we ought to sign Jair Alexander," and they did. So, I'm not. I'm like you guys. I'm not sure he's a fit for the Cowboys right now.
All right.
Yeah, and I think that's also the gravitational pull when you have an elite quarterback like Lamar Jackson. He can go to the GM and be like, "I want that guy." And all of a sudden that guy's signing a contract the next day, right? And it's because people want to go play for a Lamar Jackson because he is such a dynamic player. And that's not a shot at Dak or anything like that, but we've seen this over NFL history. How many guys have taken cheap 1-year deals to go play with Tom Brady, to ring chase, or to go play with Peyton Manning? It's a relationship league, and you're seeing that with Jair Alexander.
All right. Well, to make room for Rochelle and Winfrey, the Cowboys waived defensive tackle Justin Rogers and cornerback Luke Barku. They both did not play for the Cowboys, right?
Justin Rogers was a late round pick in 2024 from Auburn. Big defensive tackle. He actually got cut before week 1. The Cowboys wanted him back on the practice squad. He decided to join the Bengals practice squad instead. Dallas eventually brought him back, but it's probably not a very good sign of a 340-pound defensive tackle is getting cut in minicamp and OTA. It's because there's no contact. That's generally a sign that either you're out of shape or you're not working hard enough. And for Luke Baracco, he is was a small school corner who I think had 11 interceptions one year for San Diego State. He's bounced around the league a lot. That's just kind of what happens to some of these corners that get to be 27, 28 years old and who are never big time starters. They play on 22 different teams by the time their careers are done.
Yeah, here's the thing. When you're getting cut, like you said, at this stage of what's going on, they don't like what they see. They're telling you, we don't think you have any chance of, helping this football team at all. And so what is the reason for that? Is it that he is out of shape? Is he hadn't put in the work during the offseason? Whatever the scenario is. But right now, they feel like they've gotten better. And anytime you can turn the bottom of the roster and you can feel like you're upgrading your football team, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and most of the time for these guys at the bottom of the roster, if they haven't shown anything in a year or 2 years, there's no reason to hold on to them. Like you should be churning the bottom of your roster pretty consistently. And I'll give Stephen Jones and Will McClay a lot of credit. That's one thing that they have done religiously over the last 10 years is they're not just standing pat when it comes to guys 60 to 65 in the roster. They're always trying to find a way to get a tiny bit better at the back end.
And that's what you should be doing. I mean, that's exactly what you should be doing and in my mind, you should be doing that right up to about number 50. I mean, you should be moving some guys in and out that you think show upside on your football team.
All right. We're going to take our first time out, and when we come back, we have still some more Cowboys corner moves. Want to get the coach's thoughts and Marcus as well. Great to be with you, though, on this Thursday morning. We also want to hear from you via the comment crew. Robert Jones jumped in early and said, wow, I'm not sure what he was commenting on, which part, but that's okay. We love it. We'll take it. Thank you, Robert. We'll get to more of your comments coming up as well. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right. Well, if you ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go, between dining out, online, shopping, and entertainment, it's very easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Now, Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. And instead of juggling multiple apps, what's cool, you can really use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code Locked On NFL for half off your first year. Okay, we are back. The Cowboys Squad Show. Glenn Stretch Smith, the coach, and Marcus Mosher, happy to be with you on this Thursday. All right, so speaking of corners, we have also talked about the recovery of Trayvon Diggs. You mentioned that a moment ago, Marcus. And now the speculation has started for the next deal for Deron Bland, because the Jets are reportedly close to signing their corner, Sauce Gardner, to a 3-year extension worth $90 million. So there you go.
These corners are starting to get quarterback money. Do you remember, Coach, not that long ago when we were debating whether Dak should get $30 million a year from the Cowboys? Now that's
there
what.
we go.
Well, I'm just saying, honestly, it wasn't that long ago. Like, that was the discussion. Is Dak going to get $30 million a year? Just think about how much that market's moved.
Woo.
But
yeah, I remember not too long ago when they advertised this thing's called the Poe Peel Pocket Fisherman, and you tried to just kind of pull it out of your back pocket. Let's see if we can draw stretch offsides here. Let's toss this little lure.
No, I wasn't doing that.
You're not doing it today.
That's fine. I wasn't trying to do it. I don't think the Sauce Gardner deal, whenever it gets done, is going to have a big impact on DaRon Bland, just like I don't think the Derek Stingley deal is going to have an impact, because Sauce Gardner is a 2-time all-pro cornerback who's played a bunch of games already in the NFL, whereas I think DaRon Bland had one unbelievable season in 2023. There's no doubt. 2024, he dealt with an injury. He was okay when he came back. 2022, during his rookie season, he was a part-time player, wasn't a full-time starter until later in the year. Assuming DaRon Bland has a nice season, I still think he can get maybe upwards of $20 million a year. But the Sauce and Derek Stingley and JC Horn deals, I don't think they're going to have any impact on what Bland ultimately gets.
Well, I know you guys have heard me talk about this a lot of times, but when you go in to the pro personnel side, I mean, they'll have a huge board up there, and they'll all be ranked positionally where they like them. And I can tell you that you just mentioned the guys that are at the top of the list, and then you got to come on down a few more before you get to where you would think that DaRon Bland would fit with that particular skill set of guys. And so, with that being said, that's exactly where that money will be slotted. I mean, NFL teams right now are not into just wasting money. They are absolutely going to find every angle that they can in order to get value for what they're paying a guy.
So, interesting. Coach, I want to just ask you a quick question. So, of the top 10 highest paid corners in the league, I think 9 of them are former first-round picks. 5 of them are former top 10 picks. And the only guy that's not a first-round pick is Trayvon Diggs, who was a second-round pick. Do you think Bland's draft status being a mid-day 3 pick could ultimately play a factor here? Because I just don't think maybe around the league he has the same name value as a Jalen Ramsey or as a Denzel Ward or Derek Stingley.
I just think that you have 2 corners with the Cowboys who they're instinctive guys. They're smart guys. They know how to sit on routes. Are they going to get beat on double moves? Yeah, they are. But they're smart. I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm saying they're smart guys who understand and can read routes and route recognition and what you're trying to do. And so, in theory, you'd like to have one guy like that and then another guy that's a really solid corner. Dallas doesn't have that. They have kind of 2 of these, what I would consider, they're gambling corners. That's what they are.
We call them high variance corners on the Daily Show. And that's what they are. Like, if they're getting interceptions for you, they're adding a ton of value. But what about on the plays where they're not getting an interception?
Right. But what I'm saying is, how many, and I don't know how many times does that guy get beat? And we've seen him get beat on double moves. And so that's the other side of this is, are they going to get you 1 or 2 critical interceptions? They are. Now, what are they going to give up? Because again, they're going to get double moved. I mean, everybody in the league knows that. Now the question becomes, can you protect long enough for them to run the double move? You see what I'm saying? It's the same thing we go over and over with. Who gets the chalk last?
Yeah. So, and I don't think either of these guys are, well, I don't think the NFL really has the lockdown, shutdown corners like we did when we had, Champ Bailey and Darrelle Revis and Dion and those guys, right? Like those guys just don't really exist. But I don't think DaRon Bland and Trayvon Diggs are guys that you go and say, okay, hey, go take away this number 2 receiver, and we're not going to give you any safety help, right? I just don't think they're that type of players. Whereas guys like Patrick Surtain and Sauce Gardner, they can do that. If you put them on your number 2 receiver, they're going to eliminate them from the game. And I think that's the biggest difference between that tier of corner compared to what Dallas has.
That's correct. I mean, that we're right back to saying, hey, how do we have them ranked? and why are they ranked so high? So we have that discussion. Why are you ranking this guy this way? Because he can take away a certain part of the game. And Dallas does not have that guy. And that's not again, I think Trayvon Diggs is a good player. I really do. I think when he's healthy, he's a good football player. The downside of it is he's probably a 4-6 guy. And again, how many times in a 6-game NFC East run where you're playing both those teams twice, how many times is he going to get run by? How many big plays are he going to give up?
Sure. Now the Cowboys had a pretty good corner that ran probably in the 4.7s later in his career, and Everson Walls, who had a nice little career, but I don't think he's Everson Walls either.
Well, Everson Walls was uber smart with what he did and how he put himself in position too.
Yeah, that's just happened to be my dad's favorite player was Everson Walls. I just we'd like to on the Locked On Cowboys show give a little shout out to some of the older players every once in a while. We didn't forget about you guys. I'm just letting you know.
Absolutely. Well, in addition to DaRon Bland, if that's not enough, very quietly, and I know you and Landon talked about this, Marcus, as well, the Cowboys have declined to pick up the 5th-year, $12.7 million option for Kaiir Elam, who, from all indications, has had a really good mini camp, and so far so good here with the Cowboys. But again, you look at him, you look at Bland, got a whole bunch of guys that are really going to be in prove-it seasons.
Yeah, and it's not surprising they declined that 5th-year option because that's a lot of money for a guy that just hasn't been worth it up to this point in his career. Now, does that mean that he's guaranteed not to be on the roster in 2026? Of course not. They can always extend him if they get to that, that point. But it does sound like Kaiir Elam is having a really good offseason. Maybe the change in defensive coordinator helps, going from Sean McDermott to Matt Eberflus. Maybe just the change of scenery has helped. I also think there's a part where the change of expectations has maybe helped Kaiir Elam, because when you're a first-round pick, and we'll talk about this with Mozzie Smith, when you're a first-round pick, you're expected to be a Pro Bowl player. Whether that's right or wrong, that's the expectation fans have on first-round picks. But for the Cowboys, they don't need him to be a first-round caliber player or Pro Bowl player. They just need Kaiir Elam to be an average corner, because if he becomes an average corner, you're getting a ton of value based on what you traded for him, which was, a late-round pick. Sounds like Elam's fitting in well with the system, but the Cowboys just didn't want to guarantee him that much money, and that's the thing with these 5th-year options. Once you exercise them, it's guaranteed no matter what happens. He's getting that $12.7 million a year. The Cowboys just didn't feel like it was worth doing that yet.
Yeah, value, right? What is the value that he brings to the football team? And we don't know that right now. It doesn't mean that we may not know it in, 3 months. We might know it, but right now, that's no surprise to decline that kind of money when you don't know what you got.
Yeah. I forgot. Is there a deadline for those options? I mean, if he gets off to a great start,
once you decline it or exercise it, it's done. You can't do it anymore. And I think the deadline was May 15th or something around there. But again, the Cowboys, because he's going into year 4, he's eligible for a contract extension at any point. So let's say he gets off to a good start. He has a good 6 games to start. Cowboys could theoretically give him a contract extension, give him a little bit more money. But I don't see that happening, because I think they're going to want to see what does he look like over 16, 17 games? What does he look like in the playoffs should they get there? I think the Cowboys are going to be patient, not only with him, but also with DaRon Bland. I don't anticipate them getting a move done with any of these corners until we get to the offseason.
I mean, there's no reason to, right? I mean, what is the real reason? What would be, we talk about it all the time, what would be the upside to doing that? And, I always talk about this, knowing how Jerry looks at, how he really looks at not only players, but what they bring and how what type of value that they have. I mean, He is a wildcat oil driller. That's what he is. And so he is a gambler with everything that he does. And I just believe that he's sitting there saying, what do I really need? Why do I really need to get an early jump on either one of these guys and signing either one of these guys? I'll wait and gamble with the scenario.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Well, one of many storylines that the Cowboys will have when we get into training camp, a little over a month from today. But when we come back, our question for this show today: what is your biggest Cowboys concern right now? Right now, not training camp, not the start of the season, but right now, today. We'll get into that when we come back. Great to be with you. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. Welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. Marcus Mosher, the co-host of the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast, and former Cowboys coach Glenn Stretch Smith, playing a little hurt today. Thank you, Coach, for stepping up and leading by example, as a good coach always does.
Little sinus infection. I can tell you it's kicking my rear end. So I'll apologize for a little bit of a rough voice. Sometimes you got to step up and go play.
That's right. Got to play hurt. Absolutely. All right. Well, I thought about this, and I thought it was a good time and a good point to throw this out there. We've kind of covered everything from the offseason, the draft, OTAs, mandatory minicamp, and now we have this little window before the start of training camp on July 21st. So with that said, I wanted to ask both of you, as we sit here today, from what we know right now, and again, training camp, a lot of questions are going to be answered then. But right now, from what we know right now, what is your biggest Cowboys concern right now? I'll go first. I'll just real quickly. For me, just right now today, we're kind of splitting hairs, but my kind of concern, at least right now, is the offensive line, because I think that's going to be kind of the foundation of this offensive turnaround of running the ball, and as Coach, you've brought up, keeping Dak upright and not getting hurt again. They can't have Dak go down again, and they need to run the football, and they need to score, and they need to pick up first down. So question marks, talent, there's a whole lot there with the O-line, but that's, if you had to ask me, top of the list today, that would be it for me.
And I would say, Jeff, they've got a lot of young guys on this offensive line.
Yes.
Rookie in Tyler Booker, second-year player in Cooper Beebe, a second-year player in Tyler Guyton. And even Tyler Smith is a fairly young player. I think Tyler Smith's 24 years old. So it's not like he's a long-term veteran either. I think this offensive line in time will be pretty good. It's just how long does it take them to get there? Because I don't think they can afford to mess around and be, have a struggling unit in the first half of the year. They've invested so much into this unit, more than any other team in the league. They need the offensive line to be the strength of this roster. They need it to be the backbone. And if it's not early in the year, it could be rough for them out of the gate.
Okay.
Yeah, if I had to say, excuse me, my biggest concern right now is the health of this football team. It really is. There's so many guys that are off to the side, dragging ropes and dragging bands and doing those kind of things. So I don't know. Ask me in a month and it might change, but today it's the health of the football team.
Yeah, and I will say I've got a long-term concern and a short-term concern. My short-term concern is the defensive line, because I look at the defensive line and I look at the defensive tackles on this roster, and we've heard how the Cowboys are going to be better at stopping the run, and the personnel is not any different from what we had last year, right? Your only investment inside the top 5 rounds was a 245-pound edge rusher that I really like in Donovan Azaraku, but he's not a run defender, right? You drafted him to rush the passer. You signed one veteran defensive tackle this offseason, and that's Solomon Thomas, who is a sub 290-pound pass rushing defensive tackle. How are you going to stop the run when you line up against Philadelphia in week 1? How are you going to stop the run where you get behind in some of these games and you're down 10 in the third quarter? Is Eberflus's presence alone just going to make them better against the run? Coach, I don't know. I think that's to me, if they could sign a big nose tackle like a Linval Joseph or trade for somebody, it would make me feel a little better. But right now, that's the thing that has me feeling a little queasy.
Yeah, I mean, they can stop the run just from a numbers standpoint if they want to. But what that's going to do is it's going to put your two corners on an island, right? You're going to be manned up outside, and that's what makes Philadelphia so dangerous. Is they'll play that game with you, and they'll say, "We'll take any corners in the league matched up against our wideouts." That's what we'll do, or we'll take your safety matched up on our tight end, and
right.
we'll cause you some problems. So, yeah, it's a fair comment that your concern is in that group. I think the thing that we don't know is how does Matt Eberflus work with this group? I mean, are they a stunting group? Do they stem a lot? Do they move around? Because that's what can cause you some problems is when guys get in a position to stunt and stem around and
he hasn't historically been that way. He's been kind of, hey, these are our 4 guys. Stay in your lane, go rush the passer. But maybe, I mean, these defensive coordinators have to change and adapt. So maybe he will be a little bit different that way.
Yeah, and again, I don't know. It's not like I've looked at a lot of Bears film or looked at a lot of Indy film when he was a defensive coordinator there. Those 2 teams are not in the East, so I spend very little time looking at them. But I do think that what makes you a really good coach is when you can adjust to your personnel. So we'll see how he adjusts to this personnel.
Jeff, can I give you my long-term concern here?
Yeah.
This is right up Coach's alley as well. I'm worried. I'm worried that the next injury for Dak could be the one that makes us have some really uncomfortable conversations. And it's not all that dissimilar from where we got with Tony Romo, like in 2015, where you just couldn't rely on him anymore. And you were always, kind of grinding your teeth whenever you saw him get hit. Dak Prescott has missed at least 6 games in 3 of the last 5 seasons. You start going through the list of injuries between the foot injury in 2020. He had the shoulder injury in 2022. He had a broken thumb. He had an Achilles injury, a calf injury in 2022. Last year, if you remember, on 4th of July, he had a walking boot on for some foot injury he had. And then he has the hamstring injury. I think if he were to have another one of these big injuries, now we're talking about, okay, hey, do we need to go out and draft a quarterback high because our guy can't stay healthy? Do we need to start looking at off ramps to try to get out of this contract? And I'm not saying I think Dak is a really good player. I'm not saying this to say anything bad about Dak, but at some point the amount of injuries is going to become overwhelming, and I feel like we're getting close to being at that point.
I mean, you guys know how you've heard me say it a lot of times. I mean, they overpaid, and at some point, it's going to get you. I'm just telling you. I hate saying it, and they're going to say, "Well, Stretch is being negative or coming down." You know what? At the end of the day, he's overpaid, and I hope he stays healthy because I think he's a good football player. I do. I think he's right there in the top, I don't know, 12 or 14 if you start stacking them up, quarterbacks in the league. But I'm with you there too. I mean, he has an injury history. Normally that history follows you around, and when you have a young offensive lineman followed by a fairly young offensive line coach, you got to hope you're sound in what you're doing from a protection standpoint, because all it takes is you turning that one guy loose, and then anyway, it's a situation where his history does not lie with his injury past.
No, and I would say I'm not even really factoring in the contract, because if he was being paid $48 million a year, I would still have the same concerns, right? Like, I just wonder, are we going to get at a point where we're worried every single time he takes a drop back that he's not going to be able to make it through that play? And again, this is the way that I felt with Tony Romo after the 2015 season. It's like the Cowboys need to do a better job of going out and being prepared for when Romo gets hurt. And what happened in preseason? Romo got hurt on one of the very first plays of that and never started another game. I don't think we're quite there yet with Dak, but we're getting there faster than I think anybody maybe anticipated.
And that's a scary thought with the money that he's owed. It's scary.
Yeah. And that's my biggest long-term concern. Now, I will say, if Dak is able to make it through the 2025 season, he's healthy, he plays all 17 games, maybe some of those concerns start to go away a little bit, and you chalk it up to, hey, it's a fluke thing. He can't control that he broke his thumb on the helmet. Hey, it was a hamstring injury. Those happen. Soft tissue issues happen all the time. It's just that if we get another one, the fourth big injury in 5-6 seasons, that's when it's no longer just fluky. Now it's a trend.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to be the first to say, I mean, I want him to go. He needs to go have a big year. He needs to go have a big year for this organization. He needs to have a big year for himself. He needs to go have, a big year. And they've given him all of the weapons around him that they could possibly give him in order to go do that. Now,
well, and I think he would even tell you that, Stretch. Like he's even said, like, hey, if I don't win a Super Bowl here, none of this is going to matter. So I think even Dak would tell you he needs to have a big year.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's there and it's out there and it's not going away. And, that's what gives us an opportunity to come on here twice a week and toss it around, and you guys 5 times a week to toss it around, because it's there and it's not going away. And this fan base is starved for a winner. And do I think the Cowboys have addressed some of their issues or tried to address the quarterback scenario? I do. I think that's why they let Lance go. I think that's why they let Rush go. And now let's see what, let's see in the preseason. Do we think that this guy's really got some upside to him? And, we'll keep an eye on what's going on. I mean, I don't know.
Can I ask you a question, Coach? Would you play Dak at all in the preseason, or did you just save him for the regular season?
I mean, I don't know. Like, what's the upside to playing him, you think?
Well, I mean, I think the upside would be that he hasn't played football since, was it week 8 last year, right? Like, have him play a series or 2 to shake off some of the rust. So that way his first live action isn't in Philadelphia, on Thursday Night Football. I wouldn't play him, but I think there's going to be people that think that he should play a couple snaps just to knock off some of the jitters.
I do think that I do think they give him 1 or 2 series at some point. I do think that they will do that,
okay.
But I don't know. Again, what is what are you seeing? And that's the thing. Like, what are you seeing in the joint practices with the Rams? What have you seen that leads you to believe that, maybe he's really ready to go here? What he's lost significant weight, right? He's lost like 20 pounds. Is that right? Is that what he peeled off of him to try to get to where it wasn't as much strain on his calf? I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know what that is.
I think just as these quarterbacks get older, they want to shed some weight so they can be more mobile in the pocket. Yeah. It's not because of him trying to, rush for 50 yards a game. I think you even saw this with like Tom Brady as he got older. He got slimmer and slimmer to be a little bit more flexible. So that way, when you get sacked, you don't tighten up. You go a little bit like you go noodle on them a little bit. I think probably Dak is trying to do that as well.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, I mean, I think that's a good thing. I think he recognizes that, hey, I need to be more lean, not not to be any faster on his feet, but to be able to, like you said, I mean, to be able to absorb maybe one or two of those blows, and how does he, how does he recover from that? So,
Yep.
Preseason wise, though, I think he does need to play a few reps.
All right. We have some comments coming in. DJ Dog 31 says, okay with Dak in the preseason. Last 2 years, offense has started slow. And Robert Wilson had a bunch of comments, but paraphrasing, I think one of his main points is, hey, the Cowboys have had a good offseason, but they still have $30 million left to spend. Why aren't they finishing? Why aren't they, using that to try to get somebody?
First of all, I don't see $30 million worth of players out in free agency. So that's part of it. But I think Dallas has a lot of that money marked for players. Micah Parsons' contract, obviously that one's coming up. Maybe a Tyler Smith deal. And again, you can roll over this money. It's not like you have to, if you don't use it by week 1, it's gone. You can roll it over to the next season. And I got to anticipate that's what they're using it for, whether it's Deron Bland or Jake Ferguson or Tyler Smith or whoever it might be. They're saving that money for future years.
And let's see what we got at training camp. It's not that they're not going to spend it. I mean, hell, you could see, I think you could see Dallas make a trade, or try to get in a situation where if they really need, or they feel like they need, whether it's a corner or a defensive tackle like you talked about, let's see where that goes. But let's see what we've got while we're going to camp. Let's see what we've got. Let's evaluate our own guys before we start evaluating everybody else.
All right, we're going to take our final time out. When we come back, somebody weighed in on the moves that the Cowboys made with their running back room, and it's not good. And also, I came across something that I wanted to run by you guys. It's called the 3 hottest takes from Cowboys minicamp. I'll share those with you when we come back as well. We'll also get to more of your comments, so please jump in before we sign off. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right, welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. The coach, Glenn Stretch Smith, and Marcus Mosher, co-hosts of the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'll plug that before we go. Okay, so, we've talked about this before. Marcus, you mentioned it last time. I mean, this is the time of year where people have to write. They have to come up with angles. They have to get stuff out there. So for whatever it's worth, the Cowboys, we knew after last season, the Cowboys were criticized for having one of the worst backfield running games in the NFL. Well, they went out and they signed Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams. They had the draft with Jaden Blue. Well, PFF apparently is not impressed with those moves. They have ranked the Cowboys running back unit dead last in the NFL going into the season.
First of all, shout out to my guys over at PFF. I appreciate all the work they do. I don't disagree with them. Honestly, I don't. But I will say that your run game is not based on who your running backs are. Yes, having a really good running back can help, but you can have a really good running back and have a bad run game. We see that happen all the time.
Yeah.
I think a perfect example of that is look at Saquon Barkley the last couple of years with the Giants. He was one of the best running backs in the league, and New York's run game stunk because they couldn't block, they couldn't get up in games, they couldn't stick to the run. So there's a lot of different factors when it comes to your run game outside of just the running back. I think the Cowboys have invested in the run game this offseason. They spent the 12th pick on a run-blocking offensive guard, for Pete's sakes. Like, they are trying to get better in the run game. They have a 330-pound center. They hired a offensive line coach to be their offensive coordinator. I'm pretty sure the Cowboys have the only former offensive line coach as an offensive coordinator in the league. So while I understand that the running backs are not sexy, it's not a first-round pick, it's not a big-name player, they can have a really good run game with below average runners. It happens all the time. And I think last year is a good example for Dallas. Once they went to Rico Dowdle, who was an undrafted free agent who did nothing in the first 3 years of his career, once they went to Rico Dowdle, they had a pretty good run game in the second half of the season. And that was with Cooper Rush at quarterback. And that was with a bunch of injuries on the offensive line. So don't get too hung up on who the running backs are right now. Focus on the run game as a whole rather than just the running backs.
Yeah.
Yeah. My feeling on this is, and that's fine. I mean, they have to rank them the way they see them, and that's fine. But, Jeff, maybe you can pick up the phone and call Nick Sirianni and ask him, just for craps and giggles, say, Nick, are you guys going to tackle week 1? You planning on tackling? Just ask him. And when he says yes, then your response is, we better figure out a way to block them. Better do. All the running back and all that's great. I could be running the damn ball. At the end of the day, you better get a hat on a hat and figure out how to block somebody, because the last I checked, they're going to try to tackle you.
So, Jeff, real quick, I want to promote the Thursday show for Locked On Cowboys. Landon and I did 3 bold predictions for the upcoming season. And my bold prediction was that the Dallas Cowboys leading running back is not on the roster right now. I would not be surprised. I've been of the belief this whole time that the Cowboys are going to keep one of Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. They'll keep one of those veteran running backs. They'll have Jaden Blue be the third down passing back, whatever you want to call him, right? They'll have Hunter Lipke, who can wear a bunch of different hats on game day. And they're going to bring in somebody else, whether that's, Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall via trade. Maybe they go and look at some of these running backs that get cut in training camp, or maybe they make a trade for someone like Dameon Pierce in Houston, who was 1,000-yard running back as a rookie, but they've brought in some veterans like Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon. I would not be surprised if the Cowboys are just waiting out training camp, seeing how some of their young players look before they eventually go and make a trade at that position.
Marcus, you're not one of those young kids that used to burn incense and sit around and have a seance every night, where you weren't one of those guys.
I was not.
Hey, I like the take. Do I think? I think both.
It was a bold take, Stretch. I'm not saying it was a correct take. It was a bold take.
Right. I know. I do think they're okay. I don't see it being that bad with where they're at with Williams and Sanders. I don't just discount both of those guys. You could probably get me convinced that maybe only one will be here. What are you going to do with a guy like Deuce Vaughn? Like, how long do you think that experiment continues to go?
I think we're probably done with the Deuce Vaughn experiment, right? I guess my kind of whole thing on the running back position is, of all the positions in the NFL, it's the easiest to solve probably in August and September, because the league is full of competent running backs. And I just wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys flip a late day 3 pick for a running back that's buried behind some other good starters somewhere else.
I like it. The bold take. Yeah, that's interesting, Marcus.
Listen, it's June, Jeff. We're trying to figure out any content we can get out there. So
no, I'm glad you threw that out there. That's good. All right. Well, in addition to that, we have 3 hottest Cowboys takes coming out of minicamp. One of those involves a running back. This is that Jaden Blue will have over 50 receptions during his rookie season. What do you think of that?
That's a lot for a 5th round pick. Now, I don't have any doubt that Jaden Blue is going to be on the field as a rookie. But again, he's got 2 veterans ahead of him right now. And I think the thing that's going to be hard for Blue is, in order for him to get that many receptions, he's going to need to show that he is a competent blocker, right? Because if you can't pass protect, how are you going to get on the field? And I know some people will say, well, just, put him out in a pass route. That way you don't have to worry about it. There's going to be times where he needs to be able to protect his quarterback. And that's the first thing. So if he can show in camp and preseason that at least he's adequate, and at least he tries and gives some effort, maybe he gets there. But 50 receptions is a lot of catches for even a polished, veteran running back.
That is
half of that's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, in my mind, half of that. But I do think, if he can show the transition, which he should transition pretty well from Sarkisian's offense, where, I mean, he's a pro style guy. He should transition okay to this level. I don't know how many real snaps per game he gets to then try to equate it into how many catches he's going to have.
Yeah.
Well, I even think of someone like Tony Pollard coming out of Memphis. Tony Pollard was basically a receiver, in that Memphis offense, played in the slot. I think he had 15 catches during his rookie season. And I mean, I know they had Ezekiel Elliott back then, but it's just really hard for day 3 picks to come in and have that type of role right away. I'm not saying it can't happen, but that's a hot prediction. I agree. That's a very, very hot take here in June.
Yeah. Can't fumble either. That's going to be key.
No.
Okay. Number 2, and we talked about this a little bit last week. Brevin Spann-Ford will push Jake Ferguson and Luke Schoonmaker for snaps at training camp.
I don't think that's a hot take. I think that's probably just going to be accurate because he's already doing that in minicamp and OTAs. Now, he's going to be used differently than those guys because he's more of your inline blocking guy. Like, think at the very peak of this, like Mercedes Lewis and what Mercedes Lewis did for Green Bay and Jacksonville for all those years. But do I think he could potentially eat into some of these snaps? Sure. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, you should give him the lion's share of snaps at training camp. He and John Stevens should get the lion's share of those snaps.
Yeah.
All right. And one more. The Cowboys will lead the NFL in sacks during the 2025 NFL season.
Probably not. Usually the teams that lead the league in sacks are the ones that like to blitz a lot, and they're willing to give up big plays down the field. And that's just not really Matt Eberflus. Eberflus is more, he wants you to have to put together these 10, 12 play drives. He's not a heavy blitzer. And when he does blitz, it's only really 5 guys. Whereas if you go to Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh is going to blitz you on every single third down, or even, Philadelphia with Vic Fangio, I think the Cowboys could be one of the better pass rushing teams in the league, but don't expect them to get to 60, 70 sacks.
Yeah, that's a tall order, especially for a defensive line that, I mean, I'm not sure other than Osa, I'm not sure I could pencil in right now who the other 3, maybe Mozzie's going to start week 1, but
Fowler, maybe.
Yeah, we know what. I mean, and again, everybody will say, well, what about Micah? Yeah, I get that. But I'm saying opposite. And then how are they going to, how will they really get after it? I do think the Cowboys can get after you with a 4-man pressure, which that's critical when you can get heat with only bringing 4 and dropping 7. That helps you. So, do I think that leads to numbers of sacks? Not necessarily.
No, and I will also say that a lot of these teams that lead the league in sacks, it's because they're up in a lot of games, and teams are forced to throw the ball a lot. Now, that would be great news if the Cowboys are up 35-14 and Micah and Dante Fowler can just tee off all game long. I just don't think they're in that same situation that they were like in 2021 and 2023. I think it's going to be more of a grind for them to win these games, especially against quality opponents. So I think the pass rush will be good. Leading the league in sacks is probably not very realistic.
All right, one final comment here, and we'll wrap things up. Robert Wilson says, it really feels for the first time in a long time that the whole organization feels like they're finally on the same page. Would you agree with that?
I mean, yeah, it's as Coach said at the beginning of the show, they haven't had to face any adversity yet. We'll see if they're on the same page once they've lost 2 games in a row. That's when we'll get a better idea of where they are at organizationally.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to see from a first-time head coach how he maneuvers through a season, and we'll have to see how that all goes, because there's going to be some there's going to be some bumps in the road.
No doubt. All right. Well, Coach, again, yeoman's work by you stepping up today. Hope you feel better. We'll do it again on Monday night. Appreciate you as always. And Marcus, before we go, what do we got coming up the rest of the week and looking ahead on the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast?
Yeah, so we've got our 3 bold predictions for the 2025 season. That show is out right now. For
Nice.
Friday's show, we're going to take a deep dive into Perrion Winfrey, Robert Rochelle, the 2 guys that the Cowboys signed on Wednesday. So make sure you guys check that out.
All right. We look forward to that very much. Keep up the great work. Again, for Marcus Mosher and the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith, thank you to all of you for participating and watching and listening later. We appreciate you. We will be back with you again on Monday night. Look forward to it as we count down to the start of training camp for the Cowboys on July 21st. It's going to be here before we know it. Once again, thank you. And this has been the Cowboys Squad Show.